Hello everyone and welcome back to my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode for episode number 4 today for the French Grand Prix, and in this one I'm feeling pretty good heading into this episode. We've already scored a handful of points this season and I think we have a chance of doing that again today. It is a track I very much enjoy, so let's see how the weekend unfolds. Here are the championship standings at the moment. We currently sit in 11th position. Lando Norris leads the way at the moment, the most consistent driver of the first 3 races of the season, after some issues for the usual contenders. But there is the R&D chart. We sit in 4th last at the moment, ahead of Alfa, Williams and Haas, Alfa Romeo that is. So we should be able to get through into Q2, no worries, but beyond that we will have to try and absolutely drag the most out of this car to do any better than P15, 16, something like that. So we come across the line at the end of Q1. We needed to use 2 sets of tyres, but we did eventually set a lap time representative and good enough to get us into Q2. So that is job number 1 done for the weekend. Get into Q2, and from here anything further is a bonus. We actually sit up in 9th position at the moment, so that was actually a pretty good lap that we did there in Q1. But like I said, we had to use 2 sets of tyres to get that lap in. Mazepin, Latifi, George Russell, along with my teammate Matsushita, Giovinazzi and Mick Schumacher all knocked out in Q1. Kimi Raikkonen getting through in the Alfa Romeo. Schumacher actually did a great job in the Haas to qualify in 17th position, so that was very, very good from him. But unfortunately my teammate knocked out in Q1 once again. He's not had the overall pace in qualifying so far, unfortunately, but we continue on into Q2 then, and we'll see what we can do in this session. Like I said, anything up from here is a bonus. My only goal is to out-qualify Kimi Raikkonen, but you can see on our first flying lap, bit of a mistake there at the end of the lap at the penultimate corner, so that kind of ruined that one, but we'll be able to go again and potentially improve on our lap time still, even though our tyres will be a little worn at that point. So we'll see what we can do on this second lap. We don't get a very good run through the first few corners at all, but we will have less fuel in the car, which will also help us out. So as we continue on to the end of the lap, you can see going green right at the last moment, and now as we head towards the finish line, we will be able to improve on our lap time, and the new lap will put us ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, and we'll start the French Grand Prix from 15th position. Lance Stroll, Sebastian Vettel, Yuki Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon also getting knocked out in Q2, with interestingly Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen getting through on the medium compound tyres. So that makes things very interesting for them. Sergio Perez getting through on the softs. So Red Bull splitting the strategies between their 2 cars, and Mercedes putting all their eggs in the medium tyre basket for the start of the race. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out for them, but let's get into it.
Here we are again then at Le Castellet for another round of this year's Formula One World Championship. Renault took their first French Grand Prix win all the way back in the inaugural race in 1906, but it was another 73 years before they could take their second. I'm sure Alpine will be pushing hard to delight the local fans here today. A lap of Paul Ricard then consists of 15 corners and a total length of around 3.6 miles. Drivers will need to position their cars carefully on the exit of the flat-out turn 10, ready for the double apex right-hander at 11. Watch out for potential overtaking action at the end of the start-finish straight and into the heavy braking zone of turn 8. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn 1, so how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are 3 main things to worry about there, Crofty: positioning, awareness and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Perez, Charles Leclerc and Norris, Ricciardo, Sainz, Gasly and Fernando Alonso, Ocon, Tsunoda, Sebastian Vettel and Stroll, the scientist, Raikkonen, Mick Schumacher and Antonio Giovinazzi, Matsushita, Russell, Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So here we are on the grid then for the French Grand Prix, and if you're going to enjoy this video, I'd appreciate it if you let me know, and if you don't go in to enjoy it, let me know why. Anyway, getting into the race strategy now, it'll be the soft tyres to 2 sets of mediums for the strategy, so that is pretty simple stuff, so let's just get straight into it and go to the 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the French Grand Prix. It's a great start versus the Aston Martins ahead of us, and we're immediately going to go to the inside line and try and overtake both of them as we head down towards the first corner, and we'll also get past Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda, as well as we now try and fight for position around the outside of Fernando Alonso as we head up towards turn 3 off circuit there, as we try and give ourselves a bit of room. Alonso leaves a space on the inside, so we're going to keep this fight going as Pierre Gasly fights away with the Ferraris in front. We get a little bit blocked in behind the Frenchman, and we're not quite able to get the move done around the outside of Alonso. A bit off circuit, Alonso actually really backs out there and hands us the position, and now it looks like Yuki Tsunoda is going for the move on Fernando Alonso as we've found ourselves in a world of our own heading down the straight, and it looks like Tsunoda will get that move done as we shift our focus forwards again to Pierre Gasly, who lost out to the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, whom he was fighting at the end of the first sector. But Yuki Tsunoda is going to close the gap to us too, as the field spread brings the train back together towards the end of this first sector, this first lap, I should say. So we're going to need to get a move on and try and put the pressure on Pierre Gasly. We seem to have some decent pace in this opening phase of the race, keeping up with the Frenchman. So let's see what we can do as we go very deep into the penultimate corner. The same mistake we made on our qualifying lap. But anyway, we keep things under control and push our way out of the final corner. Meanwhile, for one of the French drivers, Esteban Ocon, into the pit lane at the end of the first lap, and he has a bit of damage to his front wing, so that's unfortunate for him. We go back to the start and we'll have a look at a replay of the front row and how they get away. The 2 Mercedes locked it out, but it was a bad start for Valtteri Bottas, a great one for Max Verstappen in third, and he's already going to be trying to challenge for the lead down into the first corner. Verstappen, though, not quite able to make it, and Lewis Hamilton holds on for the time being. Hamilton leading from Verstappen, and now Perez actually looking for a move on Bottas. So the 4th place starter challenging the man who started on the front row, but Perez not able to make that work, and Lando Norris putting the pressure on both of them. So great start for Lando as well, and we go on board with our teammate to see what the start looked like from his perspective. And he had a great launch off the line from Matsushita, immediately trying to make an overtake down the inside of I believe Mick Schumacher, and Schumacher a little bit later on the brakes, and Matsushita not able to make that work, and he gets shuffled out the way by one of the Alfa Romeos. I believe that will be Giovinazzi in that car. So yeah, not a great start for him in the end, but a great launch initially off the line. Meanwhile, back on board with us, we're on the back of Pierre Gasly. We're going to try and make the move around the outside into the chicane. We give him a squeeze towards the apex, but we get the move done anyway and get ahead of Pierre Gasly, and now he is under pressure from his teammate as we head up towards the flat out right-hander. Meanwhile, behind, Matsushita making the move around the outside of the Haas of Mick Schumacher, and Matsushita makes that work and gets ahead of the German. So that is another position gained for Matsushita as he tries to fight back after a bit of a lowly qualifying performance. Meanwhile, back on board with us, and our fight with Pierre Gasly continues as he goes down the inside into the chicane. We give him some room, and we get through and remain ahead of the Frenchman here, who is fighting hard at his home race, but we go on board with him for that overtake. You can see he goes really deep at the last moment and actually makes a bit of contact with us, and that actually damaged the front wing of his car, so that's unfortunate for Pierre Gasly, and that's dropped him out of contention. Meanwhile, we go on board with Yuki Tsunoda, and he's trying to get past his teammate, who is now struggling with that damaged front wing, and he's not able to do it on that occasion. We go on board again later on, and this time he is able to blaze straight on past after he was able to get a little bit closer on that lap, and Yuki Tsunoda is through ahead of his teammate Pierre Gasly, who has damaged his front wing. Now we focus on the battle for the lead. Hamilton got the jump off the start, but Max Verstappen is closing, and actually it's very close between the entire top group. Look at that. The McLarens and Ferraris involved as well in this lead fight, but Max Verstappen now going for the move around the outside of Lewis Hamilton. Can he do it? Into the first corner, side by side, wheel to wheel, and Max Verstappen gets through, and the Dutchman takes the lead of the French Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton down into second, Valtteri Bottas very close behind in third, followed by Sergio Perez, and then the fight between the McLarens and Ferraris ever looming behind them. But it's a really close fight at the front of the field here at the French Grand Prix as we lose the back end out of the chicane, and now we really need to watch out for Yuki Tsunoda, who's closing fast, and he's going to try and go to the outside as we head towards the flat out right-hander. We try and give him some room. He keeps it flat to the floor as we both go a bit off circuit, and Tsunoda makes the move around the outside as we get the line completely wrong through this long right-hander. Tsunoda absolutely nails it, but look at this, we both went wide. Tsunoda keeping it flat to the floor and is able to make that overtake work at the very next corner after we made that bit of a mistake. But you can see here, no fear from the young Japanese driver in his rookie season, and he's able to make that overtake work all the way around the outside. And that is a fantastic move from young Yuki Tsunoda, and we're going to need to lift our game if we want to fight with him for the rest of this race. So as we continue on, we're still sort of there behind him, putting the pressure on, and it is time for us to make a pit stop on this lap. But right now we're going to see if we can make an overtake on Tsunoda once again. We have looked to the inside, but Tsunoda is wake up to that and covers the line, and we need to wait for a little bit longer. We have a good exit out of the middle sector chicane. Now can we do anything as we head up towards the flat out right hand? And no, we're not going to try anything here. That would be a little bit too risky for my liking, and we'll sit behind him for a little bit longer. We continue on then and head into the pit lane finally for our first pit stop of the day, and we ran a little bit deep into the pit lane, no harm done. And we are now in for our first set of medium compound tyres, and we'll get those on for the next portion of the race. Here we go then, out of pit lane, and we'll hopefully not have anyone come out between myself and Tsunoda. No, we've got a clear track, and we can get back to the chase and try and retake that position that we lost a few laps ago. P12 at the moment. Meanwhile, up ahead, the battle for the lead continues, because Max Verstappen, while he took the lead, Hamilton has not let him go. Remember, all these drivers on the medium compound tyres, and now Hamilton coming back at Max Verstappen. He goes to the outside as they head down towards the first corner. Hamilton trying to retake the lead of the French Grand Prix, and does so through the first two corners, but Verstappen not giving up, and he is going to try and fight back, but Bottas getting involved now, having looked to the inside of Verstappen. Can he make anything work? No. Hamilton shuts the door on Verstappen as well, and they will sit as they were coming out of turn 2. Hamilton leading Verstappen, then Bottas, as the fight for the lead is really heating up in this race. Continuing on for us then, and there is not a lot of action in our race. We're still trying to chase down Yuki Tsunoda. Back to the fight for the lead though, and Verstappen back down the inside of Hamilton into the first corner, and he's going to try and make the overtake work on the inside this time. Can he do it? He's trying to get past Hamilton, and he might just be able to get there, and does so. But Hamilton still on the inside line. He's going to hold on and just about maintain the lead. Very deep though, and now Verstappen's going to have a great run if he can stay close enough through the next few corners. If he can get close enough in the DRS zone, he'll have a great chance to get back past into the chicane. But you can see the dirty air there affecting Max Verstappen through the end of the first sector, and now he's dropped back a little bit too far, I think, to be able to make this move stick. But we'll see what he can do in the slipstream. He's getting ever closer to Lewis Hamilton. Can he make the move? Not quite. He sits behind the Brit for a little bit longer, but next lap, and he is on it straight away around the outside of Lewis Hamilton, the much preferred way to make the overtake at that first corner, it seems, and he's back through into the lead. Max Verstappen back in control of the French Grand Prix, and he and Lewis Hamilton are fighting really hard in this race. We go back to our fight with Yuki Tsunoda, and you can see we have a good exit out of turn 2 as Tsunoda was struggling a little bit there. He defends, covers the inside line, goes very deep there, and we can't quite make the most of it. We're just not close enough, and that is the story of the race between the two of us. I can get close, and occasionally he'll make a little mistake like that, but we just can't capitalize on it, and Tsunoda stays in control of this little fight for a little bit longer. You can see we've actually got some decent straight line speed with the DRS open, but we're way too far behind to begin with, and we just can't quite get that last little bit. Meanwhile, our teammate Nobuharu Matsushita having a much easier time making overtakes. He gets past the Alfa Romeo car there of Kimi Räikkönen, so he's continuing to plug away and take positions in this race. And here's the onboard of what that overtake looked like. On board with Matsushita, and he gets clear of the Alfa Romeo there, and he's having a pretty decent race, it seems. Here's the onboard with Kimi Räikkönen, and yes, Matsushita in the races has a pile of pace, just can't quite extract it in qualifying, it seems. So that may be something we need to work on with him back at the factory. But anyway, back to our race, and you can see we're still behind Yuki Tsunoda. We're still close, we're still trying to put the pressure on, but we just cannot get that last few meters we need. But maybe this will be the time. With the DRS open along the main straight, we're closing and closing quite quickly, but again we just can't quite get there, and Tsunoda is going to hold on. But as we head through turn 2, we have a good exit here as well, but we can just never get that last little bit. Meanwhile, the leaders are in for their first round of pit stops. Max Verstappen just in ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and well, they're both going on to, I think, another set of medium tyres. Actually, I think Verstappen may be going on to softs, so split strategies, and we'll see how that works out for the two of them. Verstappen still maintaining that position ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and Mercedes probably would have been hoping they could jump Red Bull in the pits, but that is a very difficult thing to do, and now they have a car between themselves and Verstappen to overtake to one of the McLarens. But you may actually notice there, just ahead of Verstappen is Sergio Perez. He went for a very early pit stop on the soft tyres. He was one of the first cars to stop, other than Ocon obviously, who stopped on lap number 1. But Sergio Perez was able to undercut the lot of them with a early pit stop, and his tyres now will be wearing out, but that could play into the hands of Red Bull, who now lead 1-2 in this race. Very soon, of course, Verstappen catches up to Sergio Perez, makes the move around the outside at the first corner, and overtakes his teammate, who now holds P2, and Red Bull will be hoping he can hold up Lewis Hamilton for a little bit in this race. But back focusing on our battle, and you can see we're still behind Tsunoda, still trying to push him to the limit, but he's just not making any mistakes big enough for us to be able to get past, and we just cannot get that last little bit. We can't quite get close enough to make the dive, and we just can't get past him. So it's getting to be a very, very frustrating battle as he defends all the way to the inside. We go to the outside, but again we just can't get that last little bit of distance, and we just can't get past Yuki Tsunoda once again. But now you can see this time we're close as we head to the outside of the first corner. Can we make this move finally around the outside? We leave each other a bit of space, but Tsunoda with some good momentum, but we finally get the move done and get ahead of Yuki Tsunoda at the first corner, and we finally get clear of the young Japanese driver who's given us so much trouble in this race, and has defended it very, very well for that position. But we're finally clear and finally up and into what is 9th position at the moment, and I believe that is corrected. But meanwhile, out in front, this is Lewis Hamilton making the move on Sergio Perez, and the Mexican not losing time on what is now quite worn tyres, and I imagine Valtteri Bottas will very soon be following suit. But back on board with us, and you can see we're still struggling with Yuki Tsunoda. He's still right behind us, and as we head into this flat out, well, not flat out, this long right-hander, we go very, very deep and just make an absolute mess of that corner. Something I've done a few times in this race, but it's the first time I've really shown it on camera, and we lose out to Tsunoda with that mistake, and yeah, that is that. Meanwhile, this is Valtteri Bottas clearing Sergio Perez, so that strategy to start on soft tyres gave him track position with the early pit stop earlier on, but it's not really worked out for him now, and he's dropped down into 4th position, unfortunately for Sergio Perez, but we'll see what he can do in the rest of this race. Meanwhile, we're trying to come back at Tsunoda, but we just can't really make anything work into the chicane, and we remain behind him for a little bit longer. We got a good slipstream here, though, good exit out of the chicane, but we just can't do anything at that part of the circuit, so it's not really helpful. But we continue on through the chicane once again, and you can see once again we get a good exit here. We're close to Yuki Tsunoda, but there's just nothing you can do here. This flat out right-hander, there's no overtaking there, so it's a very kind of frustrating dynamic. But as we continue on, bit of a lock-up there from Tsunoda, but that's pretty much the extent of the mistakes he's been making, is just tiny little lock-ups like that. It's not affecting the performance, you know, it's not slowing him down at all, and we just can't find an opportunity to get past. This is probably as close as we've been at this part of the circuit, but it's not a heavy enough braking zone into this long right-hander, and there's just nothing we can really do to try and get past as we sit right behind him, and the dirty air starts to take effect if we get any closer than that. So we have to find an alternative way of getting past it, and that is the undercut, which we are attempting right now as we head into the pit lane for our second and final scheduled stop in this race, and we'll see how this undercut works out for us. Another set of the medium compound tyres on, and we leave the pit lane and we'll carry these tyres to the end of the race.
Let's get some heat into those tyres.
So hopefully this works out for us and we'll be able to jump Tsunoda on pit stop strategy. If not, it's going to be a long afternoon, I think, for the rest of it. But we'll see how this works out for us. So as we continue on, there is Tsunoda, and we do jump the Japanese driver out of pit lane, and we're clear of him once again. And now there's no way we can catch anyone in front. The cars ahead of us on track still need to make more stops. I think Carlos Sainz is potentially the first car ahead of us. That is on our strategy, and he's miles ahead. But Tsunoda gets straight back past us along the straight, and we had a bit of a throw of the dice into the chicane, completely out of frustration, but not able to do anything, not able to re-overtake Tsunoda, and we're stuck behind him once again. So the DRS really helping him out there, as I was really not expecting him to go flying past, or I would have maybe deployed a bit more ERS or something in way of defense. But anyway, we continue on, and we do have an opportunity once again to go round the outside of Tsunoda into the first corner, inside of turn 2, but we do not get a very good exit, and Tsunoda manages to hold on to the position once again. Meanwhile, Nicholas Latifi retires from the race with a mechanical failure, and he is out of the French Grand Prix. Unfortunately for the Canadian, he pulls over, but that won't cause any kind of safety car or anything like that on this occasion. Whew, this is getting intense, this race with Tsunoda. We really need to try and get past him and stay clear and not make any mistakes, because that's what's cost us. It cost us the position.
Okay, clear.
And there was Latifi back on the side of the road back there. But yeah, mistakes have really cost us this fight, because we should be clear by now. But Tsunoda not making any mistakes as we go round the outside, but we go too deep, and we're not going to hold the position after doing that, and we let him back through after not being able to stay within the track limits. But you can see Fernando Alonso right behind us there, and at this point I'm thinking, if I'm not going to be able to get past Tsunoda, I think my best chance is to sit behind him and sit in the DRS, and potentially that will be the best way to stay ahead of Fernando Alonso, who's looking very, very speedy. That said, we do actually get past Tsunoda, and that plan goes out the window. But it was something I was briefly thinking about, so it is something to consider if Tsunoda is going to continue this fight with us. And it looks like he is, as we go a little bit deep into this long right-hander. Once again, Tsunoda's up the inside, and he gets back through. And now Alonso is through as well, as we try and sneak back up the inside into the left-hander. And we will maintain that position ahead of Alonso. But here's the replay on board with Tsunoda. You can see we just went a bit deep, not as bad as the previous mistake, but it was enough for Tsunoda to sneak up the inside. Alonso was able to get round the outside as well, but we were able to hold off the Spanish driver and maintain that one. Meanwhile, back at the fight at the front of the field, the two Mercedes cars going wheel to wheel down towards the first corner. Valtteri Bottas trying to go around the outside of his teammate, and does so. Valtteri Bottas overtaking Lewis Hamilton and takes that position away, and Bottas is up into the effective lead as Verstappen has made his second stop and the two Mercs have not. So that is why it's a Mercedes 1-2 at the moment, because they have not made their second scheduled pit stops. They've both only used the medium compound tyres. I believe they're finishing the race on the softs. Meanwhile, you can see Alonso still putting the pressure on as we continue to struggle with that section of the circuit. But Hamilton not giving up, and he re-overtakes Valtteri Bottas and takes the effective lead back. Well, not the effective lead, the actual lead on track. But you can see that car right behind them is Max Verstappen. So he has made that stop and closed up to both Mercedes cars already, and they still have a pit stop to make. So the race has really gone south for Mercedes, as this is now Lewis Hamilton coming into the pits at the end of that lap right after he overtook his teammates. So the Mercedes cars not doing each other any favours, and really not helping each other out, as on track Max Verstappen overtakes Valtteri Bottas and retakes the lead on circuit. Bottas then comes in for his pit stop, and Mercedes not favouring the driver that seems to be faster at the moment. Bottas overtook Hamilton on track, and they give him the second pit stop, and that'll put him away behind Hamilton, who will of course have the advantage of the undercut. So let's see where Bottas re-emerges and how far behind Hamilton he is, and if he has any chance of actually gaining that time back by the end of the race. But there ahead of him is Lewis Hamilton, and there's a long way behind. It's a long way behind for Valtteri Bottas, so he has a lot of work to do if he wants to overtake his teammates by the end of the race. Meanwhile, back on board with us, and we're still behind Yuki Tsunoda, and just kind of happy sitting here at the moment ahead of Fernando Alonso. Speaking of Alonso, he tries for a move there into turn 2. We're just going cautiously, like I said, happy sitting behind Tsunoda. Alonso sends it into turn 2, and that has actually damaged the floor of our car. So it's not a serious amount of damage, but I did actually sort of notice it at the time, that it did affect the sort of overall speed of our car. I don't really know if it's in the corners or straights, but that little edge that we had over Tsunoda kind of disappeared, and it got that much more difficult to try and chase him down. I believe I felt it more so in the corners than on the straights, and it was just harder to stay competitive. Now Alonso trying to go around the outside of the flat out right-hander, and we're going to try and keep this fight going. No space there on the inside, and we're going to slot in behind Fernando Alonso this time. But a great run here through, and now we'll try and get to the inside of the left-hander, and we'll just about squeeze through and get back ahead of Fernando Alonso as we run a little bit wide on the exit, but we get back ahead of Fernando Alonso and back up into 10th position. This is a fight for just one singular point as we cover the inside line into the final corner, but it is a 1 point that will be very well worth it if we can bring it home. But you can see Tsunoda stretching away now, and I think he has got this position under control at this point, as we are now trying to stretch away from Fernando Alonso. Behind Nikita Mazepin exiting pit lane there, and we caught that time perfectly, as now Mazepin is going to get in the way of Fernando Alonso, only briefly, as we run a bit wide there looking back at those two. But that helps both myself and Yuki Tsunoda out, and keeps Alonso at bay for a bit longer. And meanwhile, actually, Gasly has passed Alonso. Pierre Gasly making a comeback in this race after that damage early on, and he will be trying to charge his way back through the field and maybe back into the points at this rate, because he has some really good pace. And myself and Tsunoda, we've been fighting. I've got a little bit of damage. Alonso potentially with some damage as well, as we have to let past Max Verstappen in the closing stages. That'll make it a 52 lap race for us. And now Pierre Gasly with a good run, as we were compromised on the exit, but we'll just about hold off the Frenchman this time around. And we may actually have an opportunity as Verstappen overtakes. Oh, that's not going to work for us, because that is a loss of the back end out of the chicane. And now Pierre Gasly trying to make the move down the inside into the flat out right-hander, and Pierre Gasly gets through and makes the move stick. And now he is in behind his teammate Tsunoda, who was able to let Verstappen pass without losing too much time. And we're going to try to re-overtake Pierre Gasly here into the final corner. We carry the speed down the inside, and we'll make the move stick on Pierre Gasly as we lose the back end on the exit, but we make it work nonetheless. Pierre Gasly actually having an even worse exit than us. I don't know how that's possible, but Pierre Gasly, no speed out of the final corner. Here's the onboard with the Frenchman, and you can see maybe a bit caught up on the curb, I'm not sure, but we were sideways coming out of the final corner, and yeah, we still managed to make things work for us. But anyway, here's the battle at the front once again. Verstappen maybe leading by a long way, but the battle for second is continuing as Valtteri Bottas goes for the move down the inside of Lewis Hamilton on the penultimate lap of the race. Bottas and Hamilton, the two Mercedes teammates, fighting wheel to wheel through the first few corners. Hamilton holds on for the time being, but Bottas is not going to give up as they continue to run side by side towards turn 3. And who's going to come out on top here? Hamilton just about holds off his teammate, but Bottas is going to be very close as they head along the straight towards the chicane. Bottas is going to have a great opportunity to use the DRS to get past his teammate. So here we go then, along the straight. Bottas closing and closing towards Lewis Hamilton. Will he be able to make the move into the chicane? Hamilton takes the defensive line immediately. Bottas to the outside. Can he make it stick around the outside? Yes, he can. Valtteri Bottas takes the position and takes second place at the end of this one. And on the penultimate lap of the race, Hamilton drops down to third. Meanwhile, we're still trying to hold off Pierre Gasly, who is charging towards the end of this race, as we have to take a very defensive line into the chicane. Cut it a little bit, but it's all good. We hold off Pierre Gasly, and now I think the job is done. It's very difficult to overtake into this final sector, so as long as we don't make any mistakes, we're going to hold off Pierre Gasly and just about maintain this 1 point that we have in this race. And we sit behind Yuki Tsunoda, who has driven extraordinarily well in this race. We've really been putting the pressure on him all throughout this race, and he has not let up. And he is going to bring home a few points for AlphaTauri and for his championship too. But up ahead, it's been an even better race for this man, Max Verstappen. It's been a dominant display after he took the lead. He never really looked back, and Max Verstappen wins the French Grand Prix for Red Bull. And that is a great drive from him, just over a lap ahead of us as we finish in 10th.
Race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
And I think that's what Gasly thinks of that race. We get the driver of the day as well. That's always a nice bonus.
So as they climb out of the car, the Red Bull team are ready and waiting to celebrate a thoroughly well-deserved win. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on the track was today: speed. I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, Crofty, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everyone at the team.
So Max Verstappen wins the French Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas had to fight hard for it, but he brings home second, and Lewis Hamilton will have to settle for third.
let's take a look at the drivers' standings. Today's performance means Max Verstappen now owns the top spot in the Drivers' Championship. Some amazing talents out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
I have to give it to the scientist. Look at where they finished compared to where they started. It's not easy to cut through the field like that in Formula 1, so it was a great effort.
Let's move on to the Constructors. Mercedes moved to the top of the table. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend from them as they fight their way towards the top. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula 1 action. I can't wait to see what's next.
So there we have it. What a race that was. I don't normally include the battle for the lead or for the podium unless we're involved in it, but I had to do it that time because that was insane. That fight between Mercedes and Red Bull in this one was too good not to include. I noticed it throughout the race that Verstappen and Hamilton were swapping around a little bit, so yeah, I had to look on the replays and see exactly what was playing out between those two, and even in the end with Bottas and Hamilton fighting towards the end of the race, it was quite an entertaining one to watch and to commentate over. But wow, Gasly was really slow there looking at the replays on the screen now, but yeah, I really enjoyed commentating over this one. It was a lot of fun watching Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas and even Sergio Perez getting involved in the action at the front of the field. And I can't believe the McLarens and Ferraris kept up with the Mercedes and Red Bull cars throughout the first stint. I know they were on soft tyres versus mediums for Hamilton, Bottas and Verstappen, but still it was quite crazy to see those 8 cars separated by basically nothing partway through the first stint. But anyway, that was all way ahead of us at the time, although we were the next car immediately behind that battle. But anyway, as for our race though, we'll certainly take a point coming out of this one, and I think on pure pace, I actually think Tsunoda and Gasly and Alonso were probably faster than us, but in the DRS, that's what helped us stay in contention and potentially a little bit of track limits getting involved as well, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, overall very happy. Definitely could have beaten Tsunoda in this race if we made less mistakes, but that's the if, of course. And maybe I should have tried that move on Tsunoda because it worked on Pierre Gasly as we just sent it to the inside of the final corner, but you have to be very close and have a great run to make that work.
The fans really seem to enjoy that. You made it look easy. You're breaking all expectations. What's your secret?
There's no secret really. We just try to extract the most out of every race we can, and if we can finish in the points, that's a huge bonus for us at the moment.
Not a great day for your teammate today. What do you think went wrong?
I'm not sure really. It was a tough race for him, and I think probably qualifying probably could have gone a bit better for Nobuharu, and that's probably where things kind of went wrong for him. But his actual race itself was very good. So yeah, I just need to work on the qualifying.
You had a close battle today, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a great battle with Pierre Gasly today, and we thankfully this time were able to come out on top. So hopefully that trend can continue.
Great. Well, that's everything.
Thanks, Claire. Alrighty then. There is the rivalry status with Pierre Gasly. We are not leading at the moment, 7 points to 10. Gasly getting the faster lap sort of nullifies the fact that we beat him on track. So we're going to have to get some good laps in at some point during the races as well if we want to claw back points in the rivalry, as well as out qualifying him. So we really got our work cut out for us. We fulfill our sponsor objective of scoring a point, which is always good, and that certainly helps out the team budget. So now we have a department event to go to, and we want to invest in a marketing campaign of some variety. We can invest either 50k and get 750 resource points, or 20k and get 500 resource points. And of course we're going to go big because resource points are absolutely everything. And I mean, realistically, are we going to miss $50,000? It's,
The department
you know,
wants me to pass
it's
on their thanks for helping
hardly
us.
anything. So that's a pretty obvious choice. We now have enough money to upgrade some facilities, so we're going to invest in the resource point generation in the powertrain facility. So as for the R&D, this episode and this little section was recorded just after practice 3 for the French Grand Prix. We're going to upgrade the front wing gurney flap. That is a drag reduction upgrade, and we will also upgrade the heave dampers. That is a tyre wear upgrade, and they should be on the car soon. Unfortunately, our upgrade to the energy store cells position failed, so we'll need to fix that one up. As for the activity timeline, we're going to do the sim training for Matsushita to increase his experience and focus. But other than that, there's not a lot left to cover, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for the Austrian Grand Prix. Goodbye.